Well, that was President Trump wrapping up his remarks to House Republicans at a retreat at the Trump Kennedy Center. He is working with them to map out the year ahead. That's the baseline. The top line in all of this is, if they don't win the midterm elections, this president says Democrats will impeach him. That's got to be a line of the day. Now, he did get into other things, and we will this hour as well. Venezuela and what's going to happen with the then vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, now the official president of Venezuela. Like, what things will the United States be asking of her? We'll get into all of it. For now, let's start with where the president did. House Oversight Chairman James Comer, Republican from the Commonwealth of Kentucky, is with me now. Good to see you, and Happy New Year. Look, Happy New Year. That was a directive of epic proportions. He called it his roadmap to victory in the fall. Your first reaction from a leader in the House to, if the Republicans do not win the midterm elections, if you don't have a majority in the House, if you don't have a majority in the Senate, this president will be impeached. Your reaction?
Well, that's true. I mean, the Democrats have a track record of unfairly impeaching Donald Trump. The one thing that Democrats are united on is their hatred of Donald Trump. They don't really have a platform that they all agree on. They're everywhere from socialists to moderate Democrats. The one thing every Democrat in the United States Congress agrees on is they hate Donald Trump. So that is a fact. I agree with what the president said. That's unfortunate. That if the House flipped, the Democrats won't be talking about trying to pass an agenda for working men and women, or try to improve the education system in America, or try to reduce crime. Their one rally point this whole election cycle will be, let's impeach Donald Trump. Of course, he'll never get convicted in the Senate, so the Democrats are just going to feed red meat to their base and not accomplish anything. Hopefully, the Republicans will demonstrate to the American people over the next 12 months that we can govern, and we have policies that'll work for the average working men and women in America.
Yeah, he hit policy pretty hard in all of this. Democrats, as you say, have been boasting that they can win back, particularly the House majority. And what he gave as the litmus test here is health care. And he says it looks like they will stick together. Will Republicans stick together on something that can not only avoid a potential other bump in the road later this month as you revisit having to fund the government, but also on health care? That's a sticking point, and it became really, really obvious with the president hitting it so much.
Well, I think he's right. It's a huge issue in America. Everyone's concerned about rising healthcare prices. I think that we can unite by a plan, but we're going to have a plan. I know the president talked about giving more money back to the American people. That's a hallmark of republicanism. So we certainly support that. But I think there are different ideas that many of us have on how we can reduce healthcare costs. Certainly, I've been a huge proponent of reforming the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers. I think they add a significant increase to the cost of prescription drugs. There are things like that we can do in Congress legislatively that I believe will reduce the cost of health care. So hopefully we'll be successful over the next few months in passing different types of health care bills that'll reduce the cost of health care. I don't think there's one big silver shining bullet that will pass that's going to magically reduce health care. But I think there are a series of things like going after the pharmaceutical companies and the pharmacy benefit managers that I think will reduce healthcare costs.
Wow, so much to get to. I want to get your take on this. The committee that you chair, House Oversight, is set to begin hearings tomorrow on the massive fraud scandal in Minnesota. They've invited Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to testify next month. A statement from his office signaled that that's not likely going to happen. Yesterday, Walz announced he is not going to seek a third term as governor of Minnesota. This is how he ended that announcement.
I'm passing on this race with zero sadness and zero regret. I'm proud of the way we treat our neighbors. I'm proud of the way that we welcome people to this state. No one's taking this away from us. Not the fraudsters, certainly not this president, not on my watch. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'll give you an update on America's best paid family medical leave program that is now a week into it. And at that time, I'll take all your questions. Thank you all.
So no questions there. President Trump reacted with this post. He was caught red-handed. I feel certain the facts will come out, and they will reveal a seriously unscrupulous and rich group of slimeballs. Governor Walz has destroyed the state of Minnesota. No one is above the law. All that from the president. And this, that last is a nod to the mantra Democrats have been using against Trump. Watch.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Chairman Comer, your reaction.
Well, look, I think by Governor Walz abruptly resigning or dropping out of the governor's race, I think that is an admission of guilt to the average American. He's going to be given due process. We do expect him to be in the House Oversight Committee. He will receive a subpoena. We've invited him to attend. We're following the normal process for issuing a subpoena, one which will win in court. I expect him to be there. He knows the rules of Congress. He was in Congress. We not only expect Tim Walz to be there, we also expect Keith Ellison, because the reports we're getting from whistleblowers in Minnesota, they have both been warned numerous times over many years about these massive amounts of fraud to the tune of billions and billions of dollars in Minnesota. And yet they chose to turn a blind eye. So they're going to have to answer for that. They're going to get their day in front of the American people in the House Oversight Committee. So I expect them to be there. But it's ironic that when Walz is announcing that he's dropping out of the governor's race, he tries to blame it on Republicans or the conservative media. But then he closes by saying he's going to start another government welfare program in Minnesota. Does anyone in America have confidence that Tim Walz can create another government program in Minnesota that won't be susceptible to fraud? I don't think so. So I think the president has announced he's withholding federal funds in Minnesota until they demonstrate that they are appropriating those federal funds in a manner that I think would be sufficient to every American taxpayer and every Minnesota taxpayer. So there's a lot of work being done in Congress and by the president and his administration to rein in Minnesota, to hold them accountable, and to make sure that tax dollars are being spent wisely.
Whew, I mean, I whittled that down to you saying Walz can run, but he can't take everybody with him.
That's right.
He's got some people behind, and this case is not over. Chairman, great to have you in the program today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.